Welcome to another Coffee with Samso, where we talk with ASX companies and CEOs and their MDs about their stories and their strategies. Today we've got Whitecliff Minerals here with Ed Mead, who is a non-exec director of Whitecliff, but he has a company called Midway Resources Limited, which has they've just made an announcement that they are injecting the projects into the company. Ed, we've had some history before. Ed was with Artemis Resources, and we've had several coffee with Samso, so he's an all hand with the whole talking and chatting. So Ed, maybe just give us a quick rundown on yourself and then what's been happening with Whitecliff.
Yeah, no, thanks Noel. Yeah, well, I've been involved with Artemis Resources since 2016. More recently, I've started to pull out of that and focus more on Whitecliff Minerals. Over the last year and a bit, I've also got private companies with some assets in New Zealand, and I presented these assets to the Whitecliff board, and the tenor of the projects, the other directors thought that it was great assets to pick up. The company's called Midway Resources, and the company's got, Midway has 3 projects in NZ, in New Zealand, one in the North Island, Muir's Reef, which has got 222,000 ounces in a non-JORC resource, with some great drill intercepts that require following up, and we think there's a real potential to grow that resource, but also to convert the NI 43-101 to JORC. We'll end up with a maiden JORC resource on that. We've got Meadburn, which is very close to the Macraes gold mine. Meadburn's got some great intercepts, like 10 metres at 2 grams, 10 metres 2.4, all very shallow, like from about 2 metres. So in Longwood Range, which is in the South Island also, at the bottom of New Zealand near Bluff, it sits between Tiwai Point, which is the Rio Tinto aluminium smelter, and Lake Manapuri, which is a hydroelectric dam, so there's great infrastructure there. But Longwood Range is prospective for gold, PGs and copper. And in the early part of last century, about 88,000 ounces of gold and 1,500 ounces of platinum were recovered from alluvial operations. The projects had no real modern exploration, and there's some recent work that's been done by Otago University looking at the fertility of the Hikea Gabbro, which is the main rock unit in the area. And there's a lot of potential there, but these gel really well in, I think, with Whitecliff's been doing in Reedy's South.
Yeah, I know. I noticed that the projects that are coming in. Obviously, I love the numbers, and it's interesting that the numbers are quite similar or to another company that I had a quick look at before, and when the guy says, have a look at this, I had looked at that, and then they made an announcement, and it was, high grade, very, very, very similar situation to yourself, where you've got this smoke before, you've gone back in there, like you said, to do more drilling, and prove up the concept. Interestingly, as you know, I've got a background with a previous company, and we worked in New Zealand. I really love the prospectivity in New Zealand, because a lot of people, there hasn't been a lot of work done there, and there's a lot of, Macraes is a long-lasting gold mine, and New Zealand actually has a lot of history in mining and gold mining, or exploration at least, and a lot of alluvial works. And we actually had a project in Longwood as well. I think we were looking at similar things to what you guys are looking at. But when you combine the two, where you got your Reedy's South and what you have now, that's in my eyes, that's quite a good fit. But obviously, your focus has been on Reedy's South previously. Can you give us your views on how this is all going to work?
I actually think it works really well. You know, it's kind of like the two-pronged attack of, you know, the philosophy of Whitecliffe is to get, you know, maiden JORC resources off historical information very close to operating mines with processing plants. So that way, you know, if we can deliver ounces, we've got a way to monetize them through an existing plant. So we don't need to be, you know, necessarily a miner, but we can add value to projects. So, you know, we've got a staff geologist that's looking after Reedy South, and that can be, you know, that will continue. We put a news release out late last week, which was an update on the work programs that we've been doing, and drilling that we've been undertaking to try and to look at extending the resource down at depth. The resource we're focusing on currently at Reedy South is, you know, 400 metres from the Muir South underground mine being operated by Westgold. We think that it's a really good play to increase the ounces. We've currently got 42,000 ounces from the maiden resource down to about 50 metres. The Muir South, the mining down to 500. We think that there's good depth extension. You know, in this COVID times we live in as well, you know, people trying to go overseas or getting into other jurisdictions is difficult. But the one benefit about New Zealand is that there's a very good workforce of, like, you know, geologists that have, you know, all worked in Australia. You know, RSC, which is run by Renee Stirk, is run out of Dunedin as the head office, which is, you know, central to the location. So, you know, we've been using RSC to do a lot of the work up to this point for Midway. But also, you know, New Zealand's also a small country, so I've been getting a lot of contacts from geologists that actually live close to, like, you know, Longwood Range, Meadburn, that are interested in doing work for us. So we see that, you know, that we've got a workforce, we've got our existing people that work in Whitecliffe, and also, you know, a lot of people that have got good experience in New Zealand that can work on the projects.
There's a myth. I mean, when I remember when I had a project in New Zealand, that it was really hard to work in New Zealand because you go the Greenie case. But actually, when I was there in practice, it was actually a total misconception. It's actually a lot easier to work there. Obviously, there's strict hurdles and stuff like that, and once you show that you can get over those, it's actually easy to work there. I mean, looking at the grades at Muir's, I mean, that's part in that northern part, and they're very common, right? High grade. Can you just give us a brief of what you understand of what's the geology there at this point in time?
Yeah, sure. So it's part of the Central Volcanic Suite from Taupo. So essentially, it's you know, high density of quartz veins within ignimbrite, so within volcanic rocks. The quartz veins, you know, the widths of the quartz veins vary, you know, from, you know, being very narrow to being, you know, quite a few metres thick, and then you've got the gold mineralisation that sits around them. It's exactly the same style of mineralisation as Waihi, which is operated by OceanaGold and Newmont. So exactly the same style. So, you know, the Muir's Reef project is 65 k's south of that Waihi operation. Our view at the moment is, and we've looked at a lot of the older work, we've talked to the people that have signed off on the NI 43101, a guy called Peter Grieve, made contact with him, and he actually lives very, very close to Meadburn. So, you know, we're looking at a lot of the recommendations that were made from the work that was completed for that resource report, which is about understanding the structures. And clearly, you know, I think, you know, understanding structural geology is probably one of the first things that should occur with resource projects, and that's really the way forward that we see is a fast way to you know, confirm the resource, grow the resource, and increase the resource category and confidence.
Yeah, structural geology wasn't my strong point in university, so but one of the things I've already in a lot of our coffee Samso we talked about this and how in the time when especially last year when the market was running so hot, I drew caution that people should look at understanding the projects a little bit more, looking at management and technical announcements. So when I see what you guys have got in Reedies and then now with the New Zealand projects, I like the fact that it's got some nice, really good smoke. Sure, you're still a long way away from any sort of big resource or confirmation of a major deposit, but this kind of stuff that is actually very important in the early parts of the project. When you speak to your investors, obviously you're in the forefront of talking to the market and stuff. What's the main reaction that you're getting? Obviously, last year was super hot. We're seeing a bit of fallback this part of the year. What's the sentiment that's out there?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think things have come off a little bit quite a bit from last year, but the sentiment that I'm picking up on is that drill holes are great, resources are better, and pathway to valuation or having something that actually underpins your value. So I think we've moved the cycle around from where it was neurology or great drill results to now it's the market sort of expecting that you need to have at least inferred resources, and then I think the market will start to move towards you need to have indicated resources which allow you to then put out some financial models. And I think where we are at the moment with say between Reedy South and also so the New Zealand assets, we're at a point where we've got the ability to kind of grow the inferred resource base, get that up. If we can aim for a target of a resource base of 400 to 500,000 ounces sort of as a target in the near term, then that underpins some value in the company rather than just being like a lot of other junior companies which just have exploration tenements and a couple of drill holes, but it doesn't actually mean anything as the market turns. So the next step would be grow our resource base and then try to get some better economics around that and look at monetising the assets.
And then I guess I'm quite interested, obviously, if I mentioned before that we actually were at Longwood before. In terms of, we were actually looking at the alluvial platinums that was supposed to be there. And what's your story on it? What's your view on that project?
So Longwood Range is made of three projects. You've got Longwood Top, there's Prince, and Merivale. And right up on Longwood Top, there's 4 diamond drill holes. 2 of those were sited on historic geochem for PGEs, and they did intersect a PGE reef. We've not been able to obviously JORC those results, but they intersected a low sulphur PGE reef, and but 4 drill holes. So 2 of the drill holes were for geology, 2 of them were on the geochem. So we know that there is a PGE reef, and this is one of the things that Otago University is sort of focused on, looking at the fertility of the Hikea Gabbro. And a lot of their work's also come out saying that it looks like it's very fertile for sulphur phases and copper mineralisation. Some of the other work that I've been looking at is that on the western side of the Longwood Range, it looks like there is potential for other types of intrusion-related gold deposits like synarchotoids or high magnesium diorites. And those styles of mineralisation can be quite good. For example, like De Grey, which is drilling out the Hemi deposit, is a very similar style of mineralisation, late stage melt associated with subduction. So we see that it's completely underexplored. You'd go, has there been any electromagnetics? No. There's a 2012 magnetic survey, but the magnetic data is quite coarse still. There's a lot of structure going on through the area. I mean, clearly there's a lot of coarse gold that's in the area, with the 88,000 ounces of gold that's been recovered from alluvial workings in association with the 1,500 ounces of platinum. And you'd say, well, that's fairly coarse, and where did it come from? At the moment, just outside our licence, right on the southern end, the Round Hill alluvial operations are underway at the moment from a private company. So there's a lot of gold that's come off this region, and the primary sources have not been found, not been looked for. I mean, 4 diamond drill holes, primarily looking at the platinum, the PGEs. You'd say it's ripe for modern exploration.
I think that's one of the things I noticed when I was in New Zealand, is that there was a lot of alluvial operations and working operations, as opposed to, you hear a lot in Australia now that, there used to be one here, and for whatever reason, but I find that everybody seems to be doing alluvial gold work there. And so, there's obviously they're shedding from somewhere, and where that point is, and I can see again, from your projects, that the grades are quite high, and they're obviously hitting some high grade veins somewhere or another. And I'm just looking at your Melbourne cross section here. It's quite interesting. I didn't realise they were very they're actually quite consistent, the drill holes, and where they are, and they're in very shallow in that part of the wheel. Look, going forward, I guess you've got to go through to shareholder approval. That's coming up. So let's assume that goes through. What's the path forward do you see? I mean, obviously, planning's 12 months, 24 months, but what's the potential news flow for investors out there?
Yeah, so with the lack of modern exploration, the first thing we'd do in Western Australia, for example, is we'd go out and do geochemistry. We know that in a lot of New Zealand, there's a lot of tertiary cover. For conventional geochem, that's difficult, and so one of the impediments for doing geochemistry in New Zealand has been, in a traditional sense, is that you'd need to do auger or drill holes. So using techniques like ionic leach, a system that's put out by ALS here in Perth, is a great way where you can actually go around and do multi-element geochemistry, and you only need to go down 20 centimetres, take your sample, and you've got a great data pack that you can then target drilling on. So we're looking at one of the first things we'll be doing with all the projects is to do geochemistry, just so that we've got a baseline. We understand where where known mineralisation is, and fingerprint that, but also try and find other areas to target. And then we'll be looking to do drilling. And in the New Zealand process for doing work programs, the application of your permit it's a competitive process. So you put an application in, and the applications that were put in for these projects, file size of between 40 and sort of 120 meg files of all the previous exploration, and you include in that a list of all the things that you'd like to do, including your budget. Once you're selected as the preferred company for a permit, you get awarded a permit number. That then goes to the local Maori tribe, the iwi, and from that point, you then end up with the local iwi Maori excising or putting conditions on areas of your permit, and then the permit then goes for grant. So, unlike in Western Australia where you sign a native title agreement and then you have to go and do heritage surveys and a lot of extra work, you don't have to do any of those things in New Zealand. And then so once your permit's granted, you can then go and do on-ground geochemistry, you can access your project, you can do all the work. When you want to go and drill a hole, you go to the local district council who give you the approvals, and away you go. Then you've got essentially like in Western Australia would be your program of work, or POW, but in New Zealand it's given out by the local council. So the council then approves your drill program, and you then go and drill holes. So a lot of the stuff can happen very quickly and very fast. And the regime for working in minerals in New Zealand is, you could argue, is actually easier than Western Australia.
Oh, definitely, I agree. It's so much easier as long as you follow the rules. It's so much easier to get things done, and the climate's nice, perfect place to do geology. Everything looks good, and if you get the hint, I'm missing it. Yeah, I'm missing working in New Zealand. It's actually a very nice place. Look, it's a fantastic story. I'm pretty sure you sort of. Obviously the announcement just came out and you guys are going through your motions of getting things done, and obviously and balancing with your existing projects. Is there anything that obviously everyone sort of say, oh, if they like it, what's the sort of the negative part of it? Are you seeing anything? What's the market telling you? Like what you guys are doing, obviously. I know it's very early because you've just announced it.
Look, I mean, everybody I've talked to about Midway and about New Zealand is, they like the jurisdiction. I mean, one of the things that say Wycliffe or even like, for example, Midway was looking globally to where would you go in the world to actually try and find projects at the moment, and it's very, very challenging. Because in a COVID world we live in, it's a problem, and whether you've got sovereign risk or you've got or potential health conditions in other countries. So from that side, it's like New Zealand is a good spot to go, for the fact that there are operating mines immediately or close to the projects, that within trucking distance is another key point. And the grades are also, we'd consider them to be, within the domain of being mineable. Over the period of time too, there are a number of other ASX listed companies. Don Harper, who's involved with Midway, was a founder for Siren Gold, which has got more projects namely on the west coast of the South Island. So he's very, very familiar with New Zealand. We've got a lot of people that are very happy with what we've done with Reedy South. We've grown that from nothing, from basically one mining licence and a small e-application to 272 square kilometres. And very cheaply as well. I think the transaction between or potential transaction, although it's obviously still up to shareholder approval, but it's 100,000 cash reimbursement, 2.4 million in shares at 2.5 cents, which is the vend price, which is at a premium to the current stock price of Wycliffe, and further 2.5 million in performance rights, and those performance rights are all based on getting JORC resources and actually moving things forward, which is what Whitecliff wants to achieve. It wants ounces in the ground. It wants a valuation that's backed by JORC resource reports. It is like, as you probably mentioned before, it is a bit of an education process for people about New Zealand, where people think that that it's a green country and that you're not going to get anything done. It's like trying to open up a mine in Margaret River, which we've obviously seen has been a difficult thing for some people who want to try and do that. But you could also, as we've discussed before, it's if you drive south of Perth, you've got like 4 world-class mines, and people forget about that. It's like you go down towards the trees, and you've got Greenbushes lithium mine, you've got the Boddington gold mine, you've got Luca with the mineral sands, you've got all the bauxite, and New Zealand has got lots of trees and looks just like the southwest of Western Australia as well. And you've got a New Zealand Petroleum and Minerals, which is mandate from the Labor government in New Zealand to have a diversified portfolio of industries, and they are being very proactive in allowing or getting mining companies into New Zealand to explore. The guy that's at New Zealand PAM that talked to is a guy called Tim Journeau, who used to be with Nickel West for BP. So he's very familiar with the West Australian system, and is driving New Zealand PAM. So I look at ANZ and I think what a great opportunity. It's like, by taking modern techniques, modern geophysics, modern geochemistry, stuff that we've sort of like probably developed heavily in Western Australia over the last, 2 to 3 years through this, sudden boom in the market. I think there's a lot that can be achieved in NZ.
I think that lots, from my point of view, from an investing point of view, I think NZ creates a lot of potentials. It's another one of those places that not a lot has been done. The potentials, obviously we know the potentials there. It's a case of whether someone goes out there and puts in the hard yards, because Macraes is not a small mine. It's been around for decades. It's actually still producing away. And then you got Waihi up the top there. Is that actually a lot of potential right along the west coast into the Otago area where you guys are. Look, guys, feel free. Definitely, I encourage you to send questions. A lot of people wouldn't be exposed to New Zealand mining or exploration, and I'm sure Ed will be happily answering any questions you guys may have. But look, Ed, fantastic. Again, I'm looking forward to hearing more where you guys go, assuming you're not going to have a problem with your shareholders on the project. Again, thank you for giving time and sharing the story of us. But yeah, let's see if we can follow the story.
No worries. Thanks a lot, Noel.
All right. Thanks, Ed.
Cheers.